I always say briefly, I don't talk for 2 hours, but I'm gonna touch on this because I had some insights sitting here today about this subject, and I had a very wonderful conversation with a old friend yesterday for a couple of hours. Talked about some pretty cool things. Um, we got into the subjects of the origins of Greek fraternities and masonry, and I'm not a mason, but he is, and you know um, different traditions, spiritual traditions, and how they're intertwined, interconnected, and what the common thread is between all these different organizations. What's up, Peter? Salute to my Seattle brothers. How y'all doing? Haps team. Thank you, Peter. It's my second. It's my second Haps broadcast. I came over from Periscope, where I had a pretty robust community of people that I interacted with. What's up, Dean? Namaste, everybody. Namaste. Um, just finished filling out the paperwork for my new car. I'm excited. I'm not gonna be here probably when it arrives, so oh well. It'll be waiting on me. Sure, my wife would be more than willing to drive it home for me. Oh, she can't. She got two kids with her. How's she gonna get there? Unless she gets an Uber. Then she could Uber her way there and then drop it back. But anthropomorphize. Now, just to keep everything. Hey, where's my computer at? I heard this. If I'm not mistaken, I think anthropomorphism is the giving of human qualities to things that aren't human, right? Uh, to put something into to fit it into the mold, almost, I would say, of a human, even though we're aware that it's not. But let's look up the official definition of anthropomorphism. Uh, and the reason I got on this subject is because well, I see a lot of scopes that either 100% say the concept of God is very physical, like very much like a human being, and I see other scopes that say, "Oh, that's completely BS. There's no God. The God you pray to isn't real." You know, we even had the conversation yesterday. I told my friend, I said, "What pushed me to investigate this subject deeper as a child was when certain prayers weren't answered." Okay, like I would pray for certain things, and it's just a scientific observation to say, "Well, I pray for water, and I don't see water popping in front of me," or I may pray for something that I think is extremely altruistic, like can all the babies in East Africa have milk and not starve to death? I would think that would be a very appropriate prayer, very altruistic prayer. Maybe I'm willing to even do some work myself. Maybe I'll get on the airplane and go to Africa and bring some powdered milk with me for those babies in East Africa. But overall, what I will notice is that when all of my work is done, most likely the babies in East Africa or other parts of Africa, maybe are still going to be wanting and lacking. So already there's clues there. There's clues there about how this thing works. Okay. So uh, once you see the writing on the wall, as they say, you can choose to either deal with it or you can choose to not deal with it. You can choose to ignore the fact that certain things you ask for from a higher power are not immediate. Let's just say are not immediately granted and gifted to you. Mostly mostly not in a miraculous way. Okay, even though we have all these accounts of miracles, but for the most part, most human beings, I want to say, in my interaction with them, I'm not seeing miraculous things. They've seen regular, ordinary things happen when regular, ordinary actions take place to bring these things to fruition into the realm of reality. You want water, you go find a well, you dig it, put a pump in it, you jiggle the pump handle, water comes up. The clouds form, conditions are right, and then suddenly a cloud can cause rain. Right, that's what we see as human beings. Let me look up this anthropomorph, anthropomorphizing definition to attribute. What's up, Ash? Oh, what's up, Ash? It's been a minute. Good to see you too. Namaste. Anthropomorphism, anthropomorphize, to attribute human form or personality to things not human. So I was dead on my definition, and you can get into why we anthropomorphize. They have a psychology webpage that talks about why human beings attribute human form to things. Sometimes I'll be sitting on the toilet and I'll look at the floor and I have this pattern of tiles on the floor and I'll just notice things like I see human faces in the tiles, right? Certain geometric shapes in the tiles look like human faces, and I'm not the only person that's noticed this. This is a well-known phenomenon that human beings will ascribe a human pattern face to different geometric shapes. Clouds look like faces and human figures. Babies when they're born. One of the first things I learned about child psychology is that human babies are extremely interested in the face. On the toilet, you can definitely meditate on the toilet. There's nothing that says that there should be a gap in your being when you take a dump or a pee. Your being doesn't cease to be when you dump or pee. That's why there are probably so many Buddhist jokes about peeing and dumping. I'm the poo poo Buddha or the pee Buddha, or you know, it's just a way to get you to. Yes, definitely, it's good quality time, man. When you're in there locked up, somebody's gonna bother you. They may try, but usually the door is locked, right? But human beings have from birth, we're already wired. You could say karmically, or you could say not karmically, but we're already wired to want to gravitate towards things of a human nature. The face is the first thing. Okay, my daughter still like she'll stop and she'll like touch my face like this. Just for a minute, she'll look at it. It's almost like she's puzzling, like, what are you? She can't say that, but it's almost I feel like that's a statement of what are you? A statement of like awe and wonder and complete just being with what is, but not completely having a grasp on it, right? Not 100%. And so it's like, what are you? And in some way, that's a statement, deep subconscious statement of what am I, right? Because so you're assuming, yeah, they're trying to figure out our features, and also that brings them solace, and it brings them some comfort, the human face. And after a while, after a couple of rounds of milk being brought to them by a human face in a hand, they probably pretty quickly figure out the human face. I need to focus on that. That's what's some kind of way bringing me, food, water, milk, comfort when I need it, right? So, if you want to get into psychologically why human beings ascribe human features to things that aren't human, you could say it goes back all the way for sure to child psychology. and to neonatal psychology, and the fact that we're comforted when we scream and when we yell. What happens? Your mother comes, she picks you up, right? So even the aspect of praying to a deity at some level, um, it may be tied to psychologically the fact that as a child, when we cried out, right, there was a human being there, a mother, a father, that would pick you up, levitate you off the ground, right? Because you don't know they're picking you up. You don't know what picking up is. All you know is suddenly your body's levitating in the air and your needs are met, okay? And I'm not telling you that this is a plea for atheism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about anthropomorphism. Why is it that human beings ascribe human features to non-human things? And what is that about? And how do we address it psychologically, like spiritually? How do we address this? Is it something that we should or shouldn't do? Okay. Now, as we get older, we finally figure out, oh, well, that's my mom. She gives me milk. She buys me clothes, and my dad, gives me things. He gives me shelter, food. We understand the bigger structure within which these things are happening. We don't call them miracles anymore, naively, because they still are. We just don't realize that they are. And then we just kind of, to say the magic sort of gets sucked out of everything after a certain age. We become very more rigid in our thought processes. Uh, Looking at clouds. Oh yeah, clouds. I can look at that couch right now. Yep, I just did it. I saw some kind of uh, samurai ghost warrior picture on my couch face. Too high. It's really easy because the geometry of the face is everywhere. Circles and ovals and things like that. You can make abstract art. But the first insight I have on anthropomorphism is this: to ascribe, if it's psychologically or a spirit, possibly. Yeah, who knows, right? Like, what is spirit, right? Like, who can say, this, because they talk about tree spirits. What, do spirits get stuck inside of trees, or the trees have their own spirit, or the druids, right, and the tree spirits? Like, how does that work, right? But when you ascribe human characteristics to something, which characteristics are you ascribing to the thing? The ones that you're comfortable with, that you know? Second question: are there more characteristics to the human uh, projection, the human blueprint that you are projecting out there onto things that you say look like human beings? In other words, does the human being have multiple aspects and dimensions to his or her being that you maybe aren't consciously projecting, but when you project onto a figure, you're subconsciously saying, well, they probably got arms and legs there, even though the cloud may look like a face. Subconsciously, you may be adding a body and legs and arms as well. Okay, subconsciously, which means you're probably adding the process of digestion and breathing as well. Which means you're probably adding in a brain and some mental processes as well. All this is happening in an instant. Okay, in an indefinable instant, your mind has assembled this whole thing, right? Out of, you know, weird or scary looking, because I've seen in enough that it doesn't fade. Yeah, I don't really I don't really cloud watch. Sometimes I sun gaze every now and then. It's an interesting process to start seeing the geometric mandala forms in the sunlight. That's interesting. But we once we grow up, we realize that our mom is not just our mother. Our mother is not just a floating head that brings milk. Okay. What's up, Sean? Namaste, bro. We realize that dad is not just a floating wallet that money flies out of miraculously. He has to go to work and make that money. There's a bank involved, and they have to cash the checks, and there's a whole process that's hundreds of years old via which dad materializes money. It's not even that it's just him doing it, right? There has to be a whole institution in place that was there before he was born for him to materialize money. And for mom to materialize milk, in my case, my daughter drinks goat's milk from Europe. Ain't no European goats over here. So, do you know how many things it takes for her to get that European goat's milk, that cabrita? There's a lot of trucks and goat milking, and goats eat grass and certain herbs and plants, and those plants and herbs are energized by the big glowing ball in the sky called the sun, and there's fertilizer, and I could go on, but what's necessary for her to have access to the floating head with the milk in her hand every night is a bit nigh miraculous, you see. But naively, human beings, in an attempt to feel comfortable, mostly is why we do this, to feel stable and settled. Healthy than we put in our. It's good. I've tasted it. It tastes really sweet, and I know why she likes it. I just took a sip one time out of her bottle, like, oh man, this is good. It's good. It tastes way better than cow's milk. It's a bit sweeter to me, I think, if I recall. But yes, one day she'll realize that her mom is not just a floating head in the middle of the night with a bottle of milk coming at her, like, God, oh, here's the milk. Then she stops crying. And then she'll learn to pacify herself. Rashawn, what's up? Thanks for subscribing. But we anthropomorphize because it's part of our survival makeup, okay? It's part of our psychological makeup that we need to come to conclusions quickly. When the lion is running across the Serengeti at me and I got about 1,000 meters, I got time to make some decisions. But if he's really close, things need to happen real fast. Oh, appreciate it, Rashawn. Thanks for the do rate me, man. All the proceeds that I get here will go to either charity or to some you know needy individual that I've identified in the community. Just so y'all know, I did get a whole 20 some bucks from Periscope. Almost 2 years of Periscope with about 800, 5 to 800 Periscopes, sometimes up to 3, 4, 6 hours long. I made a whole 20 bucks off of Periscope. So let's divide that and see how much I made per hour from my Periscope. Let's see how much would I make as a professor teaching this in college, right? It's got to be out of love, man. It definitely can't be for the money. It's got to be for the love. But I appreciate it, Ash. Genius Award. Oh wow, I didn't know that the Genius Award. I appreciate you guys, man. Y'all too kind. Uh, yes, we realize that it's not magic anymore, but then we start realizing that there's so many factors. Then one day we realize that mom is a human being, and then she has certain physiologic processes like a heart, the lungs, and a brain like you, and da 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 da. And then you realize that her role in the community, her role in society, what she does for a living, her role in the family. So she becomes actually a bit more narrow when we really finally put a persona on her. And don't forget what the Greeks said about the word persona. Persona was the mask that we wore for society. The Greek persona, word persona. And they have the mask in Mardi Gras. You wear the mask, right? Covers up your true identity. And the persona is a mask that the Greeks said everyone wore a mask. So really the process of putting a persona on something, someone, even if it's anthropomorphic, is in some ways uh, bringing them into a box. Okay, what's up, Big Worm? Namaste, man. What you been up to, man? I be. What's good, man? I just signed the papers for my new whip today, man. Got them horses, baby, coming up in the driveway soon. But yeah, it's putting it in a box. When you put a persona on something in yourself as well, you have to realize at some level you are putting it in a box for your own benefit. You know, it'd be hard to walk around every day and function if I didn't know, and I'm gonna stay, what a car was and how to put the car keys in it, and I didn't know what the word car keys was, blah blah blah. But here's the question: can we function without having a definition on every single thing? Well, let's see. How many people actually really truly know how the heart actually works down to the molecular quantum level? Not many people. Maybe 2 or 3 people on the whole earth. It may be, okay? But yet it still functions and works, right? Without us being able to put the persona on the heart and put every little function that it does into a box that makes us comfortable, even give it human characteristics, because we do that. Oh, you're all heart. You broke my heart. The heart speaks, etc., etc. We do this with a lot of different things, but only a few people really could sit here and tell you everything about the heart as far as what humanly is available for knowledge, because there's no one on the earth that could tell you everything about the human heart. We ain't talking about God right now. When you talk about the human heart, okay, there's no one that can tell you everything about the human heart. The electrical signals that it conducts, how those are propagated. Every time a signal is propagated in the heart, it creates electromagnetic signal like a radio wave that goes out. We can measure those even if we had enough equipment, right? The blood is circulating full of cells and ions and minerals, each one of those having an interaction with countless millions, billions of interactions, maybe trillions that we're not aware of. Each molecule exists on an energetic and physical plane we call quantum, right? Uh, I got a Porsche SUV, a Macan. It's like a bucket list thing. I always said I was gonna get one when I was a kid, so you know, all my friends had theirs years ago. So I was like, okay, whatever. Let's get the bucket list. Let's get the bucket list checked off here, man. And we should have some fun driving it too, with the fam on vacation and stuff. But so when you anthropomorphically say this is that, that is this has human characteristics, you don't really fully know what human is. Okay, let's be honest about that. And when we're kids, we're babies, we're okay with that. Lest you be as a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, we're okay with that. Suzuki Roshi, Zen mind, beginner's mind, right? The beginner in the expert's mind, there are a few. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few possibilities. So in some ways, really knowing something mentally, academically, um, is just a process that is more of a survival thing. Okay, it's more of a survival thing, and we've refined it down to the point where we can define things on such a level that we can predict. Okay, science is a discipline, an art form of prediction, and because we're good at predicting, that reinforces our materialist view, and psychologically also, when a child sees the mama's face over and over again, and always the mama brings milk and she brings diapers and comfort, the child is going to at some point start associating with the mama's face a prediction. When I see mama's face, good things are going to happen. And then the child is going to get, right, more and more attached to the mama's face. And strangers are going to, ooh, who are you? You ain't mama, right? So the child already is starting to become specific with the predictions, right? Because I don't know you. You ain't bring me no milk. You ain't my dad. You ain't bring me no dollar bills. Who are you? I don't, I don't have the joy for you. But this person I can predict, right? I can predict. So this need to predict for human beings goes way back, delve into astrology, looking at the movements of the planets. The movements of the planets, from a very practical level, were important for very practical reasons. If farmers knew when to plant, they had a very short planting season in certain parts of the earth. If you didn't plant within a certain number of weeks, everybody was gonna starve and everybody's gonna die. What's up, Sugar Booger? I was saying, gangsta in the house, baby. OG, baby. Only goodness, one God. What's up? Only go. uh, so the ability to predict is ingrained in the human psyche. Our brain is wired to quickly assess the environment, put tags and labels on things, and figure out what's going to happen. I see a gun on the table. I see a person bleeding over here. I see an angry man in front of me with the gun in his hand. Do I need to sit around any longer and think about this situation? Or am I pretty much moving in the opposite direction, away from this situation? Right? I see a lion. I see blood dripping out of his mouth. I see a dead gazelle over here. I see a mother, female lion, looking up from asleep. And I just walked into something, and I'm going to quickly assess that situation, and my brain knows exactly what to do. The adrenaline gets dumped. I'll probably die, but not until the adrenaline gets dumped and I make an attempt to survive. The prediction to predict is deeply ingrained. You don't plant one season, half the tribe dies. You don't predict the movement of the buffalo properly. You don't get one for a few weeks. We all real hungry right now. The ability to predict, somebody other than mama comes up. I don't. Not only do I not get milk, maybe I get spanked. Hmm. Wow. The ability to predict. Where you think PTSD comes from? That's what causes PTSD. The brain is so wired to predict that once it's uh once it's immersed in certain noxious stimuli for periods of time, the imprint is so strong that the brain cannot even get rid of this reaction that's based on a previous interaction with the environment, right? Now the brain, every time it sees something, anxiety, PTSD, because it's predicting. You see, it's predicting. So yeah, I mean, I went pretty deep there, but you have to. If you want to understand why we do certain things, then you have to understand the nature of being a human. Okay, so certain traditions understood and still understand that whenever we have a perception of something in reality, if we get beyond our emotions, our fight or flight reactions, our brain's psychological machinery, and its need to label everything and predict everything and what the outcome is going to be, that one, you actually open up a window to see more of actually what the thing actually is. Outside of my need for it to be what I need to survive. Because that's what's happening most of the time. Is everything is being pinned down into certain, categories and labels. Even the clouds in the sky have to look like, that looks like a whale or something like that, right? Whatever it is in the world that we have some familiarity with, everything else that we don't have any familiarity with gets slammed into those categories, from the subtle and sublime all the way to the gross, that looks mostly like a rock, but maybe it's an alien probe. I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But my mind's gonna go, oh, it's a rock. That's why, people driving and walking, they've done this experiment before. You seen the experiment when the gorilla will be in the people and they'll flash it real quick and they'll show you the picture real fast and they'll say, what did you just see? And you'll say, I saw three people. And they'll say, look again. And they'll show you the picture again. And there's a person with a gorilla mask and you didn't see it. You didn't see it because your mind is filtering out a lot of different things at any different moment. D-lysergic acid, the drug lysergic acid, works in a certain way whereby it removes those filters. And a lot of the stimuli that the brain is filtering out doesn't get filtered out. And people that have experienced trips see that reality, perception wise, looks completely different. And it scares some people. And some people have panic attacks. I talked about that with my friend yesterday. I said, yeah, some people have panic attacks, man. I was joking with him about a friend that we went to college with, and we both did acid in college, and he had a panic attack. And I said, because psychologically, some people, when they get into a space, when they can't sense the well-defined persona that they have put on themselves, the ego, it's a form of it scares them. It scares them because they're afraid they won't make it back. You see, or either they're gonna go crazy, or et cetera, et cetera. You know, they're not comfortable being in the blackness of space, floating in the void without a well-defined persona of who they are. You see, they're not comfortable. You were comfortable as a baby, floating in complete darkness in the mother's womb, completely comfortable, probably the most comfortable environment. The safest environment that you know of is in complete darkness with no definition of self. Think about that. That is the absolute safest you've ever been in your entire life. Is when you didn't know a hand from a foot, floating in water in blackness, unless somebody put a light to your mama's stomach or something like that. We did that one time, and it kind of freaked my baby out. She kicked real hard and moved. It was like, oh damn! It was like an alien was in there or something, you know. But for the most part, that is the safest environment that human beings know, and other animals as well. Is this undefined state of being, pre-birth, pre-being born, where we slowly become more aware of certain processes, limbs and movement, and we breathe in amniotic fluid. But I don't know how aware we are of that. It may be happening on a subconscious level, you see. So when we anthropomorphize the big God, we need to be aware that if you're gonna ascribe human characteristics to a higher being, maybe the first place to start for that to be a spiritual path is just define very clearly what it is to be human. Then, okay, define very clearly what it is to be human, and start wherever you want to start. If you want to start with uh, physiology, like I did, and anatomy, that's fine. Those are ancient disciplines, and on some level, the whole point of the ancients studying physiology and anatomy and dissecting corpses and all this stuff was the desire to know who we are. People wanted to know, like, we're suffering because we don't know. We didn't have good surgery back then. Then people didn't know what the hell they were doing and causing infections and God knows drilling holes in people's heads for whatever reasons. Not knowing who we were on a basic level was very painful, and suffering was astute, right? But now that we've gone a little deeper into what it is a human being is, we know something about physiology and anatomy, chemistry. Oh my God, I could go on and on. You know how many courses you take? Neuroanatomy, neurophysiology, zoology, comparative anatomy, cell physiology, histology. All these courses I took in undergrad before I even got to medical school. All of this is an attempt to understand what a human is. Okay. And then you go to chemistry and look at the components. And then you go to physics and understand, well, the components are energetic. And you got to understand the interactions of energy with the environment. And all of this is coded and coded and coded. It's an encoded language. Each discipline is an encoded language. Histology, zoology, physiology, physics. So really, you have Google bytes of symbol to explain reality. Google that's how deep it probably would. If you really want to explain every aspect of the human experience, the physical, and from every discipline, the physics, chemistry, the biology, all of it, social aspects, psychologies, every aspect of it, you're probably talking about massive amounts of information that still, at the end of the day, when you finished and you had all that information, and no human being in any lifetime would ever be able to consume all the information. No way. No human being will be able to. So what does that mean? That means no human being can ever really know what it means to be a human being? Is that what that means? Or does it mean that we need to be aware of the role of symbol and the process of getting to know and learning as a process, and understand that what it's referring to, what it's pointing to, is at the highest level undefinable, but self-sustaining nonetheless, self-perpetuating, morphing, functioning in an autonomous level that is beyond measurement, beyond any tools to measure the processes at which life really takes place. Because how fast does life really take place, right? You could say that it goes down to so many nanoseconds or whatever, because at that point people die. Okay, but be aware that what you're calling death is just propagating more life, because the bacteria are living off my dead body now. Life still takes place, right? Just because I'm dead doesn't mean that the processes that we define as life cease. They don't cease. Maybe they slow down. A bear can hibernate, go into a cave, slow down his heart rate, look dead. I'm pretty sure bears look dead when they're in the cave. And human beings look damn near dead too when they go to surgery to slow your heart down. They can stop your heart, take it out, work on it. The processes can be slowed down. We actually have something called permissive hypothermia in the emergency room, when you expose a body to cold, because we know it preserves brain function. It also slows down cellular processes and prevents, I want to say, oxidative damage to the cell and things like that. Um, and we recognized that not too long ago. I think it happened because children were falling into ponds and freezing and being brought back. And we realized that when you slow the processes of life down, it actually preserved what we call this form of being or life, right? This physical expression that we call life. So it's very fascinating, because people probably think that life happens at a very quick, uh, energetic process. That's a very quick, energetic process. And yes and no. Yes and no. Sometimes by slowing things down, you actually preserve life. Go think about that. Think about that, right? Um, which means that we can't really define it like that. We can't say that it's only these processes that happen at a certain speed, and the processes that are happening at a speed that are slower than that or faster than that aren't contributing. That's not true. All we can say is that we see it manifest one way when certain conditions arise, and then when other conditions arise, it's the physical manifestation looks differently. But there was an unbroken chain between both, you know, and the whole mindset of something starting and stopping is, you gotta be very careful with that one too, because that's also tied to our need to anthropomorphize God, because we always have this need to understand how things start and stop, because again, it still goes back to our need to predict and control. You see, that's why you always see, it's said in most religious walks that the process of letting go and the process of sacrifice, process of renunciation, all those processes have something that's similar. They're about opening the doors. They're about being okay in the blackness, okay with not knowing, okay with realizing that to know you have to go through the unknown, and that both things are always simultaneously interacting with each other, the known and the unknown, known and the unknown, right? The unknown, the subconscious, if it wasn't functioning properly, you wouldn't even be who you are. You'd be something else. The unknown, right? The whole process of the unknown and the existence of the unknown is a half of a coin that has to. I guess it has to be that way. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But what I do know is that there's much more going on in the unknown that I'm aware of in the known. Okay. And because there's so much going on in the unknown, and that contributes to being life, the definition of what we call human, that when I put the big God into a box and say he's a he, she, it a person, and give he, she, or it human characteristics, I better spend an equal amount of time defining what it means to be human, defining what the human state is. And if you think that's easy, then you're just naive. That's all. You're just naive. You're like a kid that, looks at a plastic truck, and, that just popped out of the air for you to play with. And it's just what you think it is. It's a little plastic toy to roll on the ground. Little do you know that it's made of plastic, and, you can debate this if you want, but the oil came from ancient forest on the earth that decayed long ago and turned into oil, that got turned into petroleum products that end up becoming plastic products. And then all the people in different places. I was gonna make a joke about China, but I was gonna say China made your plastic car. And the generations of families that had to exist for that person to be there in the factory to make the car. Again, it's the naivety of a child and the need to be fed the milk that makes us want to anthropomorphize, you see. So I'm just gonna leave y'all with that. I'll make this one short, so I don't want to mess it up. I think I've hit on enough things to give you food for thought, right? So the next time you think about the big God, you can have a little bit more of a contemplative process there before you finally slam the gavel down and say, this is what it is. You might want to listen to the prosecution and defense a little bit closer, what they're trying to tell you about the state of being. Problem is, you're going to be listening for all of eternity to get the facts on that one, right? Some people aren't comfortable with that. So We'll continue to anthropomorphize, but you know, innocent men get sent to jail every day. Don't be your own jailer. I'm out of here. Peace.